Hi folks, welcome to the channel. My name is Colin, call sign MM0OPX, and today I want to talk to you about a Moxon antenna for 10 meters. Well, if you don't know what a Moxon antenna is, effectively it's just a 2-element Yagi beam, but the ends are folded inwards, and the antenna has effectively a 50 ohm match, so you can connect it straight up to coax. It has great front to back, meaning whichever way you're pointing, you don't hear the signals as strong at the rear, and then you obviously then get forward gain out the front, so you're putting more of your signal out the front than what you are in any other direction. If you've seen my videos before, you'll know that I've built a Moxon for 20 meters, and that was a real behemoth. Let me tell you, it was a real struggle to fit it into my garden here. After building the 20 meter Moxon, the 10 meter was a relative doddle. You don't need much space at all. Even if you have, say, a balcony, you could fit this on your balcony. I think that's easily doable, and I know people have done that in the past. I've had to design this antenna slightly different to my 20 meter. I was going to make a shortened version or a smaller version of my 20 meter Moxon, but two things: it was going to make it too heavy, and it was going to make it too expensive if you wanted to build it. And I had to think completely different, so I looked at lots of videos, lots of articles on the internet, just how I'm actually going to do this. And what I've done is I've used 2 aluminium tubes, I've used 2 hydraulic clamps, and I've basically, it's constrained in such a way on the pole that it's mounted on that it keeps it at the perfect angle of 42 degrees. I designed it in CAD, so I didn't have to measure too much out when I was actually cutting it. The ID for pinning the poles together, I got that from Max Mountain World. I'll show you that a bit later on, but that means that the angle is set, and you don't need to actually worry about setting this in the field and getting it to that 42 degree angle. It's quite an inexpensive antenna to build. I've costed everything up, and the antenna is less than £50 for all the parts. Okay, postage and packaging, shipping costs may take it over that, but you may just have things in your junk box that you may be able to make this antenna. Really, if you can do a little bit of DIY, then you'll be able to actually build this antenna. The only thing that caused me any difficulty whatsoever, and I wouldn't say it was difficult, it was just new to me, is I actually bought a little tube drilling jig, which allowed me to actually drill through the pipes and make sure it was vertical and it was in the centre. So I think that's probably worth getting your hands on. I purchased this jig from Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description. It's not an affiliate or anything, of the type of thing that you may want to use. If you have a milling machine, then this won't be an issue for you. And if you're even luckier and you have access to a CNC lathe with a 4th axis, a C axis, you could drill this in a winner. But it's a fantastic antenna. So I think without further ado, let's go and take a look at it. So this is the Moxon in its entirety, and as you can see, there's not actually a lot to it. So before I set it up, I'll just talk to you through the components. So on the right hand side here, you can have the center spreader, as we call it. So this is basically 2 aluminium tubes. It's a 15.9mm outside diameter and 9.5mm internal diameter, and I really just picked this because I wanted the nice thick wall thickness, but I think I could actually go to thinner tube. These clamps are actually basically hydraulic tube clamps available. I think anything that I've got here, you're going to be able to source anywhere in the world. This was actually designed in CAD software. I actually modelled this up. So the first thing I did was I actually put this bolt through the middle, and this bolt that actually goes through the middle, this idea, I have to thank Max from Max Mountain World, because you need to actually fix this separator at 42 degrees or thereabouts to get the correct angle. So as you can see, when the centre bolt is through the middle, exactly through the middle, to keep keep it centred, you can see that the clamps are actually off centre. If you put the clamps in the centre and you do it the other way about, you'll find you'll have a mismatch. But I'll put a link to this drawing in with the bill of materials in the description below. So when this actually goes onto the pole and clamps onto it, it will automatically lock at the correct angle, which is very, very handy. The only disadvantage to that is that you need to have these clamps and the diameter of these clamps, the centre hole, it matched pretty much exactly to your mounting pole that we're going to use. For the spreaders, these are actually 7.9mm by 590mm tent poles. Again, replacement tent poles available absolutely anywhere. Once they're out, I can show you what we've actually done to them, but they have the stretchy cord that runs through the middle of them, and that also comes with the kit. This white thing next to it here, this looks like a bit like a fishing trace. This is actually the element wires, everything that will then clip onto the spreaders, and the reason that I've got it like this is, well, quite simply, if you don't, you'll have a massive tangle, so that's how I've actually, I just keep it. Next to that, this is the feed point. This is RG316 coax. These are M4 screws, just a little bit of plastic plate and an SO239 on the end of it, and this is quite light, and this, you need to use a light feed point, otherwise you'll cause sag on the elements. And these little things, these are extras. These are, I would call them cross braces, and the reason that you may need these is in very, very windy conditions. You may find that the antenna swinging about a bit, so these will just help to reduce that. So the antenna, once again, I'm going to show you me setting it up, but I'm actually going to set it up on this pole here. This is the Life's a Breeze 10-meter pro pole. I'm going to do a video on this. This is, sorry about the planes, that's Edinburgh Airport. This is an amazing pole. It's by far the best pole you can get for the money. 10-meter pole. If you look at the wall thickness, incredible. It's not quite spider beams, but it's not far away, but unfortunately very difficult to get hold of. The company that sells them, Life's a Breeze, they only get one delivery a year. But as I say, I'll follow that up in another video, but that's what we're going to be using to get this Moxon up about 7 meters into the air. Okay, let's go and get things set up. Hopefully you're seeing me okay and you're actually hearing me okay. I've got a little external mic on here, hopefully that will help things. Right, first thing we need to do is we need to put on the, we'll call it the centre spreader. Now I've put a little bit electrical tape onto this pole just to get up to the correct diameter. The diameter of these poles is 26.9mm, class size 4 or class 4 poles. So when that tightens up onto here with these butterfly nuts, it becomes absolutely solid. You don't need to put these that tight. Now this thing is absolutely solid, and it's absolutely fixed at the angle, so it's not going to come off there no matter what pole you use. Now we're going to get our spreader poles. These little bungee ties are really good, and I'll actually use these later. So we've got 4 of these obviously. Now the ends of these, because it's a 9.5mm internal diameter of the aluminium poles, I've actually built up the diameter to 9.5mm. And you actually get 9.5mm tent poles if you want to use bigger ones. And I should say, I've drilled holes in these centre spreaders, so from the end of the aluminium pole to here is 90mm, I believe, but it's not critical. You can make that to suit, so it doesn't matter which spreader can go on which side, which makes things a lot easier. As you can see with these spreaders, very, very simple. So I'll put it on just like that. Number 3, on the ends of these, I've actually got a little stainless steel ring that we'll use to clip the wire onto, but I'll show you that when we do a close-up. Just like so, and then we'll make sure our rings are just pointing up, because it'll make it easier for clipping on our wire. Like so. Now you can see there's a bit of sag there, but this is a tension system, so that'll be okay. Don't worry about that. So now we've got our elements, so now we need to basically untangle this. And this is the bit you've got to watch. So what I'll just do, I might go out of shot here. To say, if you don't put it on some sort of winder, you will get tangles. Okay, so the two ends here are actually our feed points, and actually I'm going to connect the feed point up. Again, I'll do a close-up so you can actually see this. Incidentally, the wire I'm using, this is actually stainless steel wire. I know some people have got a bit of a thing against that, but trust me, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's what I had to hand, and it doesn't stretch. So we're not going to get any stretch on the wire. So we'll just get one end of our feed point. This just goes between two washers and a butterfly nut. Tighten that up. Doesn't need to be tight, and then we'll get our other end. Like so. Just nip that, which will give us our electrical connection. Now we can start to actually connect up our elements. So I'm actually going to take this one and go at the back here, clip on. You need to do this a few times to actually practice. It's not difficult, but you will get in a tangle if you don't do this. Right. Number 3. And number 4. Now, you could actually put up the antenna like this and it would work. It would work fine, but I want it pointed up the way. So I've tried a few different ways of actually doing this, but basically I just flip the wires up like so. I did this the other day and I made it, and it was easy. There we go. You don't need to be afraid of these elements, these spreaders. There we go. And we bring our feed point in at the centre. And it's just like that. What I've not actually done is, normally I use the pole in the middle here and I bring this up and I use this as a support for the feed point, because you do need to support it, the coax, but that's actually okay. So what we'll do is we'll actually use one of our little bungees, like so, like that, and there we go. There's our 10 metre Moxon up, ready to go into the air. So before I put it up, we'll do a little close-up. You can see these little, these are just little stainless steel rings. The reason that this bungee cord's still out here, I've just not done the final knot, just in case I needed to adjust the length or the tension. You can see that I've actually constrained the wire using these little ferrules, and it just helps keep the lengths all fixed. Going along to the feed point, you can see that this little plate, and you can see that these little hoops just hook on there. Again, there's a little ferrule under here, and I've put glue lined heat shrink over this, because trust me, if you don't, you do not want stainless steel wires pricking your hand, because there's nothing more painful. Again, round about the coax here, that's some glue lined heat shrink, and there's some liquid electrical tape on the coax to stop water ingress. So that's that. Again, all four corners are the same. Spreader wise, this insulator on the ends, this distance between here for the frequency, I actually set mine for 28.5 megahertz, but you can set it wherever you want to. The calculator isn't bad as far as it goes, but you may need to experiment. And you can see that these are not even tap tools. I just drilled them 3.5 millimeter, and I just put the M4 screw through. So the distance between these hole centers is 97 millimeters, which is what it needs to be. So it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot to it, and it could be adapted for other bands. You know, it could easily be for 12 meters, or it could be for 11 meters. You know, so quite a simple antenna, and it's going to be any sort of vertical, hands down. Okay, so next thing we need to do is we want to actually get it actually up in the air, and we'll check the SWR and we'll see what that's looking like. So I'm just going to use some RG316 from the feed point, because this is just what I have for my portable kit, and it's nice and light. So we're just going to get that ready. So obviously we've got an SO239 on the end already. And remember, I was mentioning this other bungee cord, we're going to use it to secure that. So let's put it up. I'm not going to tape these because it's not too windy. So I'm just going to take the strain. Strain off this. There we go. And this actually goes up very easily. Now, the total weight of this is less than 1.2 kilos, 1200 grams, so I don't know what that is in pounds and ounces, but it's not very much. So there we have it. It's actually up. I'm actually going to bring it down just one section, which will let me rotate it and let me connect up the analyzer. That's it up in the air. There we go. Nothing more beautiful than an antenna up in the air. So we've got our rig expert here, and we've actually done a sweep of 10 meters, and this is our curve. Now, the Moxon does have this funny double dip. That's kind of normal, so don't be too worried about that. I do have another antenna in the garden, and I know I'm getting interaction from that, but I'm not worried about that at all. I was watching it was a presentation on YouTube. I think it was like Californian DX Association, and the SW curve that they actually shown was actually very similar to this. So don't be too worried about that. You're not always going to get a 1-to-1 SWR, and you don't need to. Anything less than 2-to-1 is absolutely fine. You know, that's 11%, so really don't worry about that at all. As I say, once I get this out in the open, you know, it'll probably improve somewhat, but don't be worried at all if it's like this. And it's actually quite windy just now, and you know, it's really, the antenna's not really getting bothered at all, and that's probably because the wires and stuff, there's very little wind resistance on it. Yeah, that's not moving a bit at all. And this pole, as you can see, I've only got this guide at the bottom. If I was going to be putting it up for any length of time, I would have a secondary guy pointing up there, up about here. I would have a guy pointing there for sure, and I would tape the joints as well, but it's just not needed to do this little demonstration for you. Right, well, we'll see, but I've got the radio there, but I'm not sure 10 meters, it's actually CQ Worldwide CW this weekend, so I'm not sure if anything's going to be on 10, but I've never had this on the air so far, but let's go and see if there's anything about.
Radio Tango, Fritz Germany. Radio Tango, Fritz Germany, contest. Contest, Radio
See the front to back on that?
Radio Tango, Fritz Germany,
That's me pointing towards them.
Contact Radio Tango, Fritz Romani. Radio Tango, Fritz Romani. Contact.
Look at the signal fading as I drop, as I change it.
Radio Tango,
S3.
Fritz Romani. Radio Tango, Fritz Romani. Contact.
I'll turn it back on him again.
Contact Radio Tango, Fritz Romani. Radio Tango, Fritz Romani. Contact.
So there we are, that's my 10 metre Moxon antenna, and hopefully it's inspired some of you to actually, perhaps go out and actually make this. It doesn't take up a lot of space. 10 metres is hot at the minute here. You're going to work lots of DX, that's a certainty. If you build this antenna, you will work DX, and you're going to do that for the next few years. You can see that I've worked a few contacts here. It's CQ Worldwide CW this weekend, so we just worked a few stations on CW, which you've seen there. Worked them absolutely no problem at all. Seeing good front to back on the stations, multiple S points of front to back, which is what you will expect. On the SSP portion of the band, there was a Russian contest there, so I wasn't too fussed about joining in on that. I wasn't quite sure what the exchange was either. It's a little bit early in the day here. It's still before lunchtime. Unfortunately, I can't leave the antenna set up. If I was to leave it set up for another 2, 3, perhaps 4 hours, that's when North America would start coming in, and I'm sure we would work some of you guys across the pond. So I'm going to do further, as I say, I'm going to do further follow-up videos with this antenna. I'd like to even do a comparison, do an A/B switch with, say, a quarter wave vertical and the Moxon, and see what the difference is. But folks, please give it a go. As I said, the down in the description there's a bill of materials with some links to the items there. But everything that's in this antenna you can actually buy wherever you are in your part of the world. I don't believe there's anything that won't actually be suitable for you. Alright, thanks folks, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.